I'd like to call this meeting to order. Before we start the regular agenda, we're going to proceed with the swearing in of officers. Chief Otterness.
Please stand for the posting of the colors.
All uniformed personnel, present arms.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms.
All right, you may be seated. Thank you. Commission President Dardis and members of the commission, appreciate being able to be in front of you tonight. It's a special night for us here in the city of West Fargo and with the West Fargo Police Department as we welcome the families and friends. A lot of our staff is here tonight, different department heads, the leadership from the city, as we swear in 3 of our newest officers with the West Fargo Police Department. The officers that I'll introduce in just a minute, I think we've had a lot of discussions over the last few weeks since they've come on board, and I think they made a great decision. We've talked about their choice to come to the city of West Fargo. This certainly is a city that's supportive of the police department in many ways, in addition to our city commission, who's always very supportive of the work that gets done here within the police department. So with that, I'd like to introduce our 3 new officers, Matthew Woodley, Tyler Todd, and Tucker Demlo, and I will have them come up in order of their seniority. So we will start with Officer Matt Woodley. If you'd come up and just introduce yourself to the commission, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Matt Woodley. I'm, I guess, maybe the 3rd-ish newest officer with the West Fargo Police Department. I grew up in Bowman, North Dakota. That's why I spent the majority of my life in North Dakota. I ended up on this side of the state after I chose to attend UND in Grand Forks, and that's precisely what ended up as the start of my law enforcement career. I was in Grand Forks for over 9 years, and now I'm a 10-year law enforcement veteran, and I'm proud to say I'm a West Fargo police officer now. I chose West Fargo Police Department. It was a pretty easy decision, primarily because there's just a strong sense of community. There's a really strong bond, a really positive bond between the community and the police department. Additionally, the police department has a really family-oriented vibe to it, both within the department and with the relationship with the officer to their family as well. That's it.
Welcome.
Thank
Glad
you.
to have you here. Thank you.
Right, if you'd like to invite somebody up to speak. All right, next we'll invite Tyler Todd up. As you can see with Tyler's family, he comes from a long line of law enforcement and a lot of family involvement in law enforcement. So the other special thing about Tyler, as we talk tonight, is Tyler Todd, Officer Todd is the first officer with the West Fargo Police Department that has transitioned from our community service officer role into a police officer role, a vision that we had when we revamped our community service officer program. And he was one of the first CSOs that we brought on board when we converted that program into what it is now. So very proud of Tyler and very proud to say that we have our first officer, Tyler Todd, that has been promoted up through the ranks from our community service officer program. So Tyler will come up and introduce himself.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tyler Todd. I grew up in Hawley, Minnesota. As soon as I graduated high school, I enlisted in the Air National Guard, and I've served there for 5 years. I've had the opportunity to deploy with them. I then went to school at NDSU. I completed my bachelor's degree in criminal justice there. And while I was going to NDSU, I had the opportunity to become a community service officer with the city of West Fargo. There I had the opportunity to learn the whole city, how the streets worked, how to do report writing. I got to learn a lot of the other officers. And as I moved on from that to an FTO, being taught the job of being a police officer, I think it greatly helped, accelerated my learning. And that really helped me choose West Fargo PD, because not only did it give West Fargo an opportunity to look at me and how I worked as a community service officer, it also gave me an opportunity to see how I enjoyed the department and how they ran. I enjoy working for the West Fargo PD because while it gives you many opportunities of a big city, you also get to know people in the city because it has that small town feel still, along with the department. The department's not too big where you don't know everybody. You still get to know everybody and who they are and who's all on your shift. So, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you to Chief Todd from the Detroit Lakes Police Department for being here tonight and your family. And third, I've got Tucker Demlow. He is also comes from a long line of family within law enforcement, and so we're really fortunate to have Tucker on board as well, and look forward to great things from Tucker throughout his career. So we'll let Tucker come up and introduce himself to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Tucker Demelo. I grew up in Renville, Minnesota. I went to Alexandria Tech for 2 years for the law enforcement program. And then, yeah, back in June, got hired on here and been very happy with my decision. Really like the people, and I've loved the department so far, and yeah.
Good. Welcome.
Thanks.
If you would all three raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I state your name. Having been duly appointed a police officer for the city of West Fargo.
Having been duly appointed a police officer for the city of West Fargo,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and that of North Dakota.
and that of North Dakota.
I will faithfully and impartially,
I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
perform the duties of said office
perform the duties of said office
according to law.
according to law.
I will constantly strive
I will constantly strive
to achieve the objectives
to
achieve the objectives
and ideals as stated,
and ideals as stated,
dedicating myself
dedicating myself
to my chosen profession,
to my chosen profession,
law enforcement.
law enforcement.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right. If you'd help me welcome our three newest members of the police. So the commission always likes to get a picture with our newest officers, so they'll get a picture real quick, and then everybody that's here for the swearing-in portion can join us back in the police department for some cake and coffee.
On behalf of the City Commission, I'd like to thank the families for giving the support and sharing these wonderful young men with our department. A shout out to our honor guard that always does a nice job. It looks like we just missed them. And to the command staff that is standing in the back of the room. I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, moms, dads, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, or whatever you might be, that our command staff, our chief, is second to none when it comes to the type of culture that we've created here in West Fargo in our law enforcement community, and I couldn't be more proud. Officer Todd, I'm sure you feel that same way about your department. We're delighted that you're here, and we're delighted that your son is one of the 3 new recruits. So on behalf of a very grateful city, thank you for sharing your loved ones with us. You folks feel free to exit here. We don't expect you to stay for our city commission meeting. And I learned long ago with Lieutenant Anderson back there in the back of the room that you never get between him and cookies and coffee, or you get run over. So, again, thank you for joining us this evening. Glad you're here. Chief Todd? Thank you, Commissioners. Sorry. First order of business is to approve the agenda as presented. Obviously, we've had a change from the way that the agenda was presented. I had a consensus from the commissioners that allowed me to do that. So with that, if you would approve the order of the agenda with the amendment that has taken place.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes of September 5th, 2022. They have been distributed. They are on pages 3 through 4 in the packet.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of September 5th, 2022 as presented and in the packet. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item E is the building permit report. It has been distributed. It's on pages 5 through 7 in the packet.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permits report as distributed for September 19th. on pages 5 through 7 in your packets. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is a consent agenda. We have items A through G, starting on pages 8 and ending on page 45.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson, second. Been moved and second to approve the consent agenda as presented and in the packet, items A through G. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to the regular agenda. Item number 2 is where we'll start, and that's the Converdia Health Staffing Enterprise Grant Application. Casey Sanders, Economic Development Manager for the City of West Fargo, will be presenting. It is in your packages in pages 46 through 104. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, President Commissioners. Tonight I have Braden with me from Converdia Health Staffing seeking a $75,000 enterprise grant. They look to bring 20-plus jobs to the downtown area, approximately 1.5 million in salaries and benefits. So looking at improving this property, half of it right now is currently in basically a warehouse state, and so they're looking to lift that property up and elevate it into offices and just increasing the overall property value. So it looks like this property meets all of the eligibility requirements, and the expenses are estimated about $300,000. So with that, if you have any questions, Braden's in the audience, and he can certainly step up and answer any questions you have about their business and their plans.
Thank you, Mrs. Berglund. Commissioners, any questions? They certainly seem to follow all the criteria that's involved. Bring additional 20 jobs to the Cheyenne Street. All very positive. Projecting the 20-plus employees to be $1.5 million in salary and benefits. So, and they meet all the criteria as far as your office is concerned, Mrs. Berglund? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Commissioners?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there, Simmons?
Close enough.
Excuse me. Commissioner Simmons, is there a second, please?
I'll second it.
Commissioner
You don't have
Olson.
my name in there.
Yeah, I knew I had it right. Been moved and seconded to approve the Converdia Health Staffing Enterprise Grant Application for $75,000 as presented by Casey, our Economic Development Manager. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is a public hearing and the first reading of the zoning ordinance amendment allowing for campgrounds within an area or agricultural district. Mr. Aaron Nelson, Planning and Zoning Director for the City of West Fargo. It has been distributed. It is on pages 105 through 123.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So as was mentioned, item 3 is a public hearing in consideration of a draft zoning amendment intended to establish a process for allowing new campgrounds within the A agricultural zoning district. As you may recall, this amendment was initiated by the City Commission back on August 1st of this year at the request of the Red River Valley Fair Association. And it's coming before you tonight for a public hearing and consideration of the first reading of a draft ordinance. So I thought I'd start out by just providing a quick bit of background, just quick recap, refresher on the past conversation regarding this item, and then I'll talk through some of the specifics about what's been drafted. So in terms of some of the previous discussion, the Red River Valley Fair Association is interested in expanding their existing campground, which is located within the city's extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction, just outside of city limits, on the west side of town. The existing campground is considered what's called a non-conforming land use, which just means that it's something that was legally permitted back prior to the city having zoning jurisdiction for that area, but it's not something that's currently permitted by the zoning ordinance today. So it's allowed, it's grandfathered in as existing, but it's not allowed to expand. And so that's what precipitated the conversation in the past few months here. Ultimately, the Red River Valley Fair Association petitioned the City Commission to initiate a text amendment to allow campgrounds in some capacity within the zoning code. At the City Commission's request, Mr. Cody Cashman, CEO of the Fairgrounds Association, was asked to hold 2 public hearings to gauge some sentiment from the public prior to any action being taken by the City Commission. Those 2 open house meetings, or public meetings, if you will, were hosted by the association back in, I think, July this past summer. I believe many of you were in attendance as well. 3 residents from the adjacent neighborhood did attend, did express some concern, primarily with the location of the proposed campground facility. Ultimately, Mr. Cashman came back on August 1st to continue the conversation, and again, City Commission at that time directed staff to put a proposal together for further consideration. And so that's why I'm in front of you here tonight. Staff has worked with the Red River Valley Fair Association as well as the city attorney to come up with a piece of draft ordinance for consideration. In summary, this amendment would treat campgrounds and RV parks as conditional uses within the agricultural zoning district, which is the zoning district that the fairgrounds are currently located within. The ordinance would dictate that campgrounds and RV parks be licensed by the state and comply with all state regulations in regards to campgrounds and RV parks. The campgrounds and RV parks would be restricted to areas outside of city limits, so they would only be allowed outside of city limits within the city's extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction, and specifically within the agricultural zoning district. The facility would be required to have an on-site manager. The applicant for a CUP would be required to provide a management plan for any noise or activities associated with the campground facility. And then one other item I would note too, which is a change since this was considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission, is there is a added condition that the site be located a minimum of 500 feet from any residentially zoned area. So that's kind of the details of the that would relate specifically to campgrounds should this amendment be approved. Also included in your packet are the state statutes as well as the administrative code provisions relating to campgrounds and RV parks. These laws and associated licensing requirements are enforced by the North Dakota Department of Health's Food and Lodging Division. So they would be the entity that would actually oversee these regulations, which is what they do for any campground in the state of North Dakota. And then another highlight I just wanted to mention while I'm up here too is that the ordinance as written would not grant the Red River Valley Fair Association with the right to construct or expand a campground or RV park. This would simply establish the process for them to be able to apply to do what they're intending to do. This item was heard at was considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their September 13th meeting. They did recommend approval on a 4-to-1 vote to you all. A public meeting was held, or a public hearing was held at that meeting as well, at which time 3 members of the public did speak in opposition of the proposed amendment, specifically citing things like blighted conditions of a campground, adverse impacts to the neighborhood, and proposed property property values in the area, things like headlights from traffic, smoke from bonfires, noise associated with campgrounds, also concerns over transient housing or short-term housing for folks living in the campground during the warmer months, and then also some concerns over crime. That's kind of a summary of some of the comments that were heard at the meeting. So that kind of covers me for the highlights. With that, I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you may have regarding the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Questions, commissioners? No? All right. Guess we don't have any questions for you, Aaron. At this point in time, I will close the regular agenda of the City Commission, and we are going to move into a public hearing on item number 3 of the zoning ordinance amendment allowing for campgrounds within an agricultural district, which has been outlined and is in the packet of pages 105 to 123. Is there anyone here from the,
Mayor,
please?
I'm sorry, don't we have to vote on this, put it on first reading?
I think we do that after the public hearing.
Oh, do we? Is it, okay, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Nope, no problem, Commissioner. Keep me on the right track here. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak against the ordinance? Please, I would ask that you come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, so the young lady over here that's keeping a record of this can make sure that we make notifications to you in the future. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Mike Schomer, 620 West Wind Drive, West Fargo here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I guess I am a little disheartened that we're at our third public hearing now and none of the concerns brought forward have been addressed or at least explained how they will be minimized or not be an impact for the neighborhood or the community as a whole. So we'll still go through the motions here in good faith that will be heard. I've made it clear that this is not necessarily a NIMBY issue and not in my backyard. Been very supportive of the fairgrounds and everything that they've hosted. Fairgrounds were there first. No complaints about the races, no complaints about the fireworks, about the concerts and so forth. That's part of living there. Completely understand that. The neighborhood is now established and the Fairground Association should have to be respectful of the neighborhood that is now established. This expansion goes directly behind an established neighborhood. We've talked about the light, noise, and blight that was addressed here. I guess a chain link fence was proposed to help some of that. A chain link fence will not do anything for light, will do nothing for noise, and will do nothing for blight. It's a minimal gesture, I guess, that we're going to protect the neighborhood by putting a chain link fence up. And as we know, there was concerns about the cost of that when presented. Again, we brought up the vehicle. We already have headlights from the current campground that come into our backyard. It's far enough away. There's 2 rows of trees between us and the campground. We still have light that comes in. It's not an enormous amount, but if we're going to more than triple the size of this campground, it will be a significant impact to our backyards, be a significant impact to our houses. It's not simply having a house in our backyard with an occasional person pulling into the driveway. This is a campground where people will be driving through. It's unfortunate that it took Commissioner Simmons to bring to the public light that this is proposed to be a man camp. That should be concerning to everybody. Proposing a man camp in our backyard within the limits of West Fargo's authority is concerning that we would support that as a commission. That's my opinion. And to bring that into the backyard of individuals is also a concern. There's been no way to address what we know this transient housing or unstable housing brings an increase in drug trafficking and human trafficking. We know that. And we're not going to put our law enforcement on the spot. We very much support law enforcement and everything they do. It's going to be an increase of calls for service. We know that. What are we going to do to protect the community as a whole? Not just our neighborhood. We're bringing this into our community. There's the concern that this is going to bring additional income to our community. Well, if we work with the county to establish a campground within 10 miles of the city, that'll still have a positive impact on our community. It does not have to be within our backyard. There's other ways of doing that. We can pass additional ordinances to prohibit drug trafficking within our campground, but drugs are already illegal. Overdoses are increasing, mental health concerns are increasing, and we're considering expanding that in our backyard. It's unfortunate. 8 members attended the public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission. 3 members did speak up. There were 8 in attendance. No one from the Fair Association showed up. Apparently they had the Big Iron Show. It's a standard event. They couldn't send one person in support. They were too busy, but they were offered a pass. As the public, I have to take time off of work and take time away from my volunteer activities serving the community in order to come to these public hearings where no one can explain to me how anything that we brought forward will be addressed. It's very concerning. We talked about increase in law enforcement. Who's going to pay for that? Taxpayers. Taxpayers are going to pay for increased law enforcement traffic for those that don't reside in our community. If there's a fire, who responds? Our fire department has to respond to that. That's taxpayer money, those of us that live here. This is an increase in tax expense that is unnecessary. I'm just pleading that the commission consider this, and even though this is just the First Amendment to allow for the process to apply, it's the first step. And once you pass this, we know what happens. We know that there's no going back. The Fair Association has not been transparent in their plans. We've held meetings. Mr. Cashman, it's great to see he's here today. I'm very thankful he did appear, and I'm sure he will speak as well. But even the last time he approached the commission, his approach was, whatever you guys want, I'll do. I don't really know. We don't have a solid plan moving forward. If it was that important, we'd have a solid plan. We would have alternative plans. Commissioner George asked for additional plans. Could we move the campground north? We haven't brought plans forward. We're going to continue moving forward, and then they'll get what they want. It's unfortunate. There's nothing we can do to prevent increase in crime, increase in light, increase in blight. Mr. Cashman spoke that the campground is pretty nice and well kept right now. You're more than triple the size of that. You're not going to guarantee that. He speaks that it's a family campground. You can't discriminate against single individuals. You can't discriminate. And if we're going to encourage discrimination, that's another concern. We can't do that. He's going to put a dog park in. That's not family oriented. There's dog parks in Fargo where some of our youth softball teams practice because there's not enough fields for the girls, and the dog park's not used. They have to practice in a dog park. That doesn't guarantee a family environment. It's unfortunate that we're here. To me, it's gone too far, but I'm not going to continue moving forward. I just plead that the commission consider this, consider it seriously on the impacts of our neighborhood when people continue to come to public hearing after public hearing to speak against it, and the impacts that it has on our community as a whole. Drug trafficking and human trafficking. That's already a big problem for our law enforcement, and we don't want to tax not only our law enforcement, but continue victimization within our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, you have any questions of this gentleman? Thank you for joining us this evening. Commissioner, excuse me, City Attorney John Shockley. John.
Thank you. And as I noted in the Planning and Zoning Commission, first of all, I'm on neither side of whether you should do this or not do this. Just from a procedural standpoint, the Fair Board has not brought forward a particular plan because this is a ordinance amendment that would allow them to apply for a conditional use permit. If they were to apply for a conditional use permit, all of those plans and items, if you approve the amendment, which is totally up to the commission, I'm neither for nor against it, then they would have to provide all of those plans and everything. Tonight is just if you're going to amend the ordinance to allow these uses as a conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley.
Thank you. That would bring up another point. The fact that this is only being considered for territorial limits within the city of West Fargo and not the entire city of West Fargo is telling of the impact that a campground in a neighborhood would have. So I'd ask you to consider that before we approve just this preliminary plan as well. Thank you,
sir. Anyone additional that would like to speak against this? Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Heidi Wolf. I reside at 716 West Wind Drive in West Fargo. My husband attended the planning meeting last week. He is out of town for work this week and so sent me on his behalf. So Mike is much more organized than I was. I was taking his notes today. I would second everything that Mike brought forward. I would just maybe even add that as we're putting this on a neighborhood, that we have to remember that there's an elementary school that is about a block and a half in that we're looking at. Westside Elementary sits right on 7th Avenue. So if we're talking about 500 feet, and my house is along West Wind Drive, so this would be in my backyard, over to the north of me, but still in my backyard. So I'm looking at the campground would be in the same proximity to my house as the elementary school is right now. And when Mike talked about crime and traffic and drugs and all that, I think we need to look at the proximity of not only our homes, but our children as well. We purchased our lot and built our home in 2000. And like Mike said, we kind of knew what we were getting into with the fair. We knew that there would be concerts, we knew that there would be races. We didn't know about the pyrotechnics, but we've learned to enjoy that. And the campground, as you had said earlier, it did exist in this area, but the expansion changes that, and it almost becomes part of our neighborhood. And when we built in our neighborhood, we have covenants that we need to follow, such as if we put a building on our lot, it has to have the same siding as our house and the same shingles and things like that. And I look at now, there will be the campers that will be closer to my house don't have to follow any of those things, but they're actually still almost right, they're closer to me than some of my neighbors are. So that's a huge consideration when it comes to property values, and if there's a house that's available in Eagle Run or a house that's in West Wind and the house that backs up, or the house in West Wind backs up to a campground, which one would you choose? Buying now, I probably would not choose the house that I'm living in. After living also in a campground area during the summer, Mike talked about like the cars and the traffic and things. We're concerned also if some of these if part of the campground did have its own septic system where campers wouldn't dump like some campgrounds do where you just go for the weekend and take your waste with you. If those lots became running water and sewage in there, the sulfur smell from those would expand and become part of our neighborhood smell, as well as the campfires and anything else that goes with that. And I think that we would just ask that you consider the citizens that have been living in this neighborhood and in this town and the taxpayers before you consider the needs of people coming from the outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf. Commissioners, any questions for the lady? Thank you. Is there anyone else in attendance that would like to speak against this proposal? Sorry, but I have to ask 3 times. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against? Is there anyone else that would like to speak against? Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Well, hearing everyone's concerns, as you can imagine, I feel like the bad guy in the room. You know, when we first started talking about these things, you know, as mentioned, when we proposed this idea, it was to kind of get the feedback of what we're allowed to do and then come up with a plan. So that's why we don't have another plan, because we're waiting to find out what the rules would be. As far as what the ordinance are here, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that 500 feet away from residents is going to really completely change that layout. For example, our current campgrounds is closer than 500 feet from the residents, just for visual things to look at. I did talk to KPH today, the folks that are helping us with this, if this were to happen. There is interest on our end to actually move if this were to happen, the campgrounds north where the gravel lot is. It will cost more for obvious reasons, but it is within the area of sewer, water, things like that. Just kind of letting you guys know on our end, we're very flexible. Chain link fence would be extremely expensive, as I think you all know. We would be interested in putting up really anything at this point. We selected a set amount that we could add. That was based on the land that was available. No one says that we have to have 150 extra campsites. That was just kind of what we came up with, what the fair would be willing to give up in terms of land for parking.
When you reference further north, Mr. Cashman,
so
far north?
Directly north. So there's a gravel lot. If you've been to the fair, there's this big gravel lot. It's directly west.
You had a bunch of the carnival stuff staged there the last time I looked at it.
Yes, sir. And that's where directly west of the county property, if you're familiar with that. And to me, that solves a couple problems. One, when I went to those meetings, the folks that spoke before me, that was one of their questions: can we go that way? And of course,
to clarify now, if you move it north to the immediate east, there's no residence there?
To the immediate east, correct. That's the county property.
It's the county property then. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. And I think it's good to point that out, because it wouldn't affect as much, I should say. Everything they said, for the most part, I totally understand and I get, and we've had these conversations a little bit. And to your points of man camp and things of that nature, it currently is a man camp. That's what it is. I know no one likes that word, but if you were to go and see, these folks are the salt of the earth, in my opinion. They come, they work. We desperately need help ourselves. The fairgrounds is looking for folks to work. So is everybody. And it seems that the only people that are available are the folks that come from out of town, and they're looking for places to stay. And we do get tons of those folks coming to the fairgrounds looking for a place long-term from May to whenever we tell them to get out, essentially. We charge $700 a month for rent. And if you get a chance, I've said this 100 times, go and look at our campgrounds. These folks, in my opinion, are great people. I mean, we spoke about police and fire. The city of West Fargo's police department and fire department, to my knowledge, do not respond to our campgrounds, and hasn't, to my knowledge. The only time that the city of West Fargo's police department and fire department is at our grounds is to do training. Just so we're clear, I think that's really important to point out, is that is not a tax burden of the city of West Fargo.
And I'd make a point that the training that takes place at the fairgrounds is, our departments are not charged for that. Is that correct?
That's never will be. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a good neighbor that way. Thank you.
We're gonna try. And to their point, there's a lot of things. I can't say that there's not drugs or all those sex trafficking, all those bad things. All I know is we never hear about them if there is. And I would always get a phone call for the most part if there's something going on. We have had small problems, don't get me wrong, spousal abuse, stuff like that. People screaming or something like that, hollering, your typical thing that maybe you would hear in any residence. But we do have a campground manager on our property, and that person is responsible for handling those things. We have kicked people off of our property if they are sex offenders and things of that nature, and it makes the skin crawl probably because I don't know if legally we can do that, but we do. It's in our rules. So as soon as we find those things out, we do ask them to leave in the nicest way possible. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's our board's belief. I will say the economic impact of this is tremendous. If we were to go through with something like this, it would help, in my opinion, the city tremendously in tax dollars. Those folks are going to go to West Fargo and spend their money, their hard-earned money. The other thing is directly, we're working on our future plans, and we need a retention pond. Fairgrounds has no stormwater. I'm telling you this for a reason, because directly east of the current campgrounds, that's the area that we proposed. Well, it's currently in that 500 feet area. So it would actually suit us very well to have that location be a retention pond, a large one, and we actually would like to add recreational fishing and things of that nature, and that goes into more. But that's kind of now, as things have shifted, especially with this proposed change, the 500 feet actually already kind of makes it a lot harder for us to do what we kind of wanted to do. So now I would just ask that you still consider this. I think it is the right direction, and we will do whatever we are asked of to make it so everyone's happy. Trust me, I love hearing neighbors saying, hey, we moved to the fairgrounds, we get it, we like the fair, and the last thing we want is anyone to not like the fair for something that we did. So we for sure want to make sure we do the right thing.
To Mrs. Wolf's point, she made is a campground presently on city water and sewer?
Yes, has been for.
I was aware of that. I just wanted the public to know that. So thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Cashman? Commissioner George.
Just to clarify, with this 500 feet from any residentially zoned area, does that force you to move your plans to the north then with this? Okay, and if you were to come up with a plan with that, the residents who spoke, how do they feel about the campground going north?
I think we would like to see a diagram of what that really looks like. I mean, it's easy to say 500 feet or doing something like this, but we still have to look at, the noise coming out of the smoke, like all that kind of stuff.
Now, I would remind everyone that this is, we're just changing the ordinance. The specifics and the details, that will be forthcoming in the conditional use permit. there'll be ample opportunity to work out the details of what type of buffers we might have, what type of fencing might be, what type of distances and stuff like this. The business in front of us this evening is to deal with whether or not we're going to allow in our extraterritorial and agricultural the opportunity for a campground. That's it. We're not making any decisions on distances away or berms or anything like that. I just want to remind everybody of that. So
I just wanted to make sure that if we did vote this through, though, that plan that they proposed would not be happening.
you're correct, Commissioner. You bet. Anything else for Mr. Cashman? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this project? I'll go back. Is there anyone that would like additional comments to speak against this ordinance change? Sir, please come forward.
Thank you, Mike Schomer again. Just briefly, I know we're talking, this is just the ordinance to allow. This is not the application. But once we allow this ordinance to go through, you can't really easily take it back. An application comes through, you have to have a reasonable reason not to approve it. And we'll have to go through this process again. Once you approve this, which may seem like, oh, we're just going to allow something else, an application can still come through. Property managers are great. We're sitting here saying that we don't have enough professional workers in our community to fill those professional jobs. What kind of quality employees are we going to have overseeing this? And who's going to oversee them? It's his money. We know money talks. So I would, again, I would encourage you to seriously consider before approving this option. And I know we're minimizing, but yeah, that Mr. Cashman today said it's a man camp. Previously, he was saying it was a family camp. There's a lot of nurses that are there. I don't know what the truth is, unless all the nurses are men as well, and that's considered a man camp. Could be. I don't know. But there's been a lack of transparency, and we're looking at changing an ordinance that could impact our community as a whole. Again, expanding a man camp isn't just the neighborhood. Moving it north really doesn't matter if you're going to bring additional drug trafficking and human trafficking into our community. That's a decision before you today. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. We go back to the regular agenda and the first reading and zoning ordinance amendment for the campgrounds for an agricultural district to allow a campground. Commissioners, any comments? Commissioner Olson.
I have a question for Mr. Nelson. So if we do not add this text that's up on the board or amend the ordinance, what happens? Let's say we don't approve this. What happens to the campgrounds that are there, and how do we move forward or don't we move forward? Can you explain that for me?
Yeah, so if the ordinance is not approved, then we're in the situation we're in today. The campgrounds that are existing today, they're just fine. They can continue to operate in their current condition. They're not allowed to expand or kind of grow or increase the footprint.
Could they move to the north?
They could not.
They could not. And they couldn't pick up stakes and move the entire campgrounds north, but not expand the number of, okay, I just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Yep.
That, if they just wanted to just move north and not expand the number of campgrounds and vacate where they currently are just to get farther away from the neighborhood, we would still not allow that because we don't have anything in our ordinance to allow them to do so.
Correct. Yeah, I think the ordinance allows for some upkeep kinds of things, but to actually physically move the non-conforming use is not something that would typically be allowed. And I don't know, John, if you can cite something specific, but that's...
Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President, members of the commission. Aaron's correct. It is a lawful non-conforming use, which means that it can be maintained, but it can't be expanded. It can't be moved. So if the ordinance isn't approved tonight, essentially the status quo remains indefinitely.
Additional, Commissioner Olson.
And then we as a city cannot put any conditions on the existing campgrounds, like existing berms or improve the screening or anything like that, because we don't have an ordinance that would allow us to put that condition on them, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Because it's a conditional use permit, if we pass this ordinance amendment and it come back forward to us, then the fairgrounds could make an amendment also to the existing one, but it would have to go through the entire process. So yes and no. If we approve this, yes, we could have some oversight as to buffering of fairgrounds property that was previously all agricultural. So we could, as a conditional use of that property, come forward with some suggestions on berms, height of the berm, solid fence versus chain link fence, all of those types of things. Commissioner Anderson.
If we do move forward with this ordinance and the fair does come with a conditional use permit, what is the engagement aspect from the adjacent property owners in public? Is it another public hearing? Is it just certain properties are notified? How does that work?
Yep. So the process for any conditional use permit would be, it goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission first. There would be a public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We would send out notification letters to all property owners within 350 feet of the boundary of the property that the request is for. They would make a recommendation to the City Commission. It would then go to the City Commission for your consideration.
Okay.
I would add too that as part of any conditional use permit, the reason it's called a conditional use permit is because the city can place specific conditions on the approval, whether it's screening, buffering, what have you, depending upon the specific context of the location and the proposed use.
Commissioner George.
So just a comment, and I've said it before, I'm a big camper. I love to camp, and I really want to support this because I thought it would be great to expand that campground and have a larger campground in town, and Cody made some great points. But here's my problem, is we know it's going to be a man camp, and we know the intended use. And my first and foremost responsibility has to be to that existing neighborhood and the wishes of those neighbors. And therefore, I think 500 feet from a residentially zoned area to have a man camp is too close. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Commissioner. Again, I want to remind us that, when we start doing with the conditional use, we could expand the distance. It could be greater than 500 feet, Commissioner. And we could require a 4-foot berm of dirt with a solid fence, 6-foot fence on top of it. We could ask for natural vegetation, that they plant trees. In an earlier discussion, Mr. Cashman had said that he would plant more trees if that's was required, because as Mike's testimony was, there's still lights that comes through the trees, and is there still a requirement for that? The only thing that I would like to remind everyone about is the Red River Valley Fair is a great asset to the city of West Fargo, even if the fact that they're not within our city limits. They're in the county. A year ago, during coming off of COVID, Big Iron still brought in 35,000 people to this community. They're buying gas, they're buying meals and whatever. So and as you said, the police department trains out there, all their driver training from Fargo PD, West Fargo PD, Cass County Sheriff's Department. So they are a great community partner. So to come up with restrictions, I'm all for that, with limitations and the like. But I want to remind everybody, they are a great community partner of the city of West Fargo. Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor, and I agree with you. They've done so much over the years. But this is my personal opinion. Our citizens come first. And that's the way I'll vote.
All right. Again, before you is the first reading of a zoning ordinance amendment to the campgrounds. Commissioners, what is your pleasure?
I move we approve the first reading.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of the zoning ordinance amendment for the campgrounds. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Again, what we're passing this evening is the amendment to the ordinance that the discussion can continue. Not that we're approving anything that's been presented to us. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the first reading of the zoning ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No.
The motion passes on a 3-2 vote. Item number 4 is a hearing on the appeals of special assessments for the following districts. Mr. Dustin Scott, Assistant City Administrator, will be presenting. The districts that are being discussed is 1315.2, 1331, 1332, 1334. Mr. Scott's not in the room, so we're going to turn to Mr. John Shockley, City Attorney for the City of West Fargo.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President, members of the City Commission. My understanding is Mr. Scott had a family issue and had to leave the meeting early, so I'll be addressing this tonight. So first of all, just for public information, tonight's hearing does not involve District 2250. That's the one at the Special Assessment Commission hearing that we had the most objections and the most complexity regarding that. These are really developer-driven, all 4 of these. As of tonight, we have not received any written appeals on these 4 districts.
The requirement is that they had till 5 o'clock to file a written appeal to any issues that they had with these special assessments. And Mr. Shockley and Mrs. Fisk, our city administrator, they monitor that, and as of 5 o'clock this evening, we'd had no written protests on any of these 4 items.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President. And also, of the 4 districts, we only had one in which we did have objections at the Special Assessment Commission meeting, and that was in regards to District 1331. The Special Assessment Commission did sustain those objections regarding 1331, with the exception of one objection. So, and just I'll briefly cover what the objection was. On property that is, and this gets very technical, on property that is zoned multifamily but is vacant. So it's currently zoned multifamily. There is no existing structures on there. The maximum number of units that could be constructed on vacant multifamily zone property is 20 units per acre. So we had initially proposed 20 equivalent units per acre on those parcels. Upon review, that didn't seem consistent with what's actually being constructed on those parcels. And so the Special Assessment Commission agreed and applied a 60% factor to that to reflect what's actually being constructed, which is about 12 to 14 units per acre for multifamily. And so there was only a couple parcels that were affected, and those assessments were adjusted for 1331. There was one other objection that wasn't really specific. It was more a reflection of concerns about the improvement district, about the overall concern about special assessments in the neighborhood, but not really specific to this district. So the process is you would, even though you didn't receive any written appeals, you still need to hold the hearing. You'll note it's not technically a public hearing. Somebody would actually have to have filed a written appeal. Historically, the City Commission has allowed somebody who has shown up to be at the hearing to make an appeal. That is up to you, but it can't be just for somebody who doesn't own property within the district. It actually needs to be somebody who owns property in the district It's not a general appeal, it's specific to their parcel. So, and you can take all 4 in the same hearing.
We can take them all at one time.
Any questions for Mr.? Is there any questions for Mr. Shockley? Commissioner George, did you have a question?
No, not a question.
She wants to take them separate.
Okay. We have a request from one of our commissioners that we do these separately, so we'll do it as such. Commissioners, I need an individual motion on and second on each of these, and we'll go through one at a time.
Okay, I'll make a motion on District 1315.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Sorry.
Please.
You should ask for if there's anybody that has any that showed up for
Okay.
each district before you vote on it.
Again, as Mr. Shockley and I have stated, the written protests were supposed to be in by 5 o'clock this evening, but I will ask if there's anyone that would like to speak on item 1315.2, which is Westview, 3rd Edition, Phase 2. Is there anyone that would like to speak on that? Okay. Do I have a motion on that?
Yep,
And a
motion.
second?
Second.
I have a motion, Commissioner Simmons, second Commissioner Olson. Is there any discussion? Again, we are voting only on 1315.2, the Westview 3rd Edition Phase 2 special assessments. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item is 1331, the Wilds 20th edition. It's on pages 132 through 167. We have had no written protests on 1331. Is there anyone that would like to speak on 1331 that is in the crowd? Mr. Shockley, do you have anything additional on 1331 or just, we're good?
No, I don't have anything additional. One thing to note is these have already been constructed, they've already been paid for, we've already bonded for them, so.
Got it. Again, this is 1331, the Wilds 20th edition. Commissioners?
Make a motion to approve?
We have a motion from Commissioner Olson, a second by Commissioner Simmons to approve 1331, the Wilds 20th edition. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed on a 3-2 vote. Next order of business is 1332, is the Westview 4th edition, pages 168 through 175. There have been no written protests with regard to this special assessment. Commissioners?
Yeah, ask anybody.
You want to ask them again?
Is there anyone that would like to speak on 1332?
Make a motion to approve?
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. It's been moved and seconded to approve 1332, Westview 4th edition, pages 168 through 175. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries on a 4-1 vote. District number 1334, 9th Avenue Northeast from 5th Street Northeast to 7th Street Northeast. It's on pages 176 through 183 in your packet. Again, we've had no written protests on this special assessment district. Is there anyone that would like to speak on 1334, which is 9th Street Northeast from 5th Street Northeast to 7th Street Northeast? Commissioners?
Make a motion to approve?
Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner Simmons, is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve Special Assessment District Number 1334, 9th Street Northeast from 5th Street Northeast to 7th Street Northeast, pages 176 to 183 in your packet. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is item number 5. It is project number 1342, and that is for sanitary lift, and that's lift station rehabilitation. And what's before us this evening is Mr. Dan Hansen, city engineer for the city of West Fargo, is asking this to procure control panels and equipment for the future of this project. It's on page 184 of your packet. Good evening, Mr. Hansen. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis and Commissioners. At the last commission meeting, if you recall, we had authorized this project to go out for bids, and we've also been soliciting quotes with our consultant for some of the controls and equipment for that project. There is quite a lead time for those items, up to 30 to 32 weeks for that. So we're trying to get ahead of it by purchasing some of the equipment as we've done in the past on other long lead time type of items. We did solicit quotes from two control companies, Quality Control and Sweeney, and they both gave us quotes for the work. Sweeney Controls was in the amount of $170,800, and Quality Controls was in the amount of $179,165. So Sweeney Controls was the cheaper of the two. However, in talking with staff and the consultant, the submittals after it's awarded, typically the contractors put together shop drawings for review before being purchased and ordered, and the lead time to get those shop drawings, from what I've been told, from the difference between Sweeney and Quality Controls, saves us between 2 to 4 weeks for Quality Control to about 7 weeks is what I was told for the shop drawings from Sweeney. So in talking with staff, that additional potential month to month and a half of delay to get those, staff recommends that we actually award it to Quality Controls in the amount of $179,165. This would be part of the overall project that was estimated to be the $1.2 million, which this equipment is included in that cost estimate. So if we were to award it tonight, that would come out of the bid. If we don't award it tonight, then we still open up bids, and the contractors would be quoting us this work. We would just be delayed in ordering it for that amount of time. So with that, I would entertain any questions from the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. Commissioners? You don't have any questions? Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Move we approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George, second's been moved and seconded to approve project number 1342 for the sanitary lift station rehabilitation, authorizing staff to procure the control panels and equipment as outlined by Mr. Hansen, our city engineer, for the sum total of $179,165. And again, the total project of this rehabilitation is $1,200,000. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Hansen.
Very much.
Item number 6 is the 2023 City of West Fargo budget. It will be presented by Tina Fisk, our city administrator. It is on pages 185 to 242. This is one of many meetings that we've had with regard to the budget. At the end of Mrs. Fisk's presentation and the commissioners, any questions that you may have of Mrs. Fisk, I will call for any community comment. So with that, Mrs. Fisk.
Thank you. I'm having a small technical problem. I'll be right with you. Thank you, Commission President and Commissioners. Before you tonight, we have the final budget for the upcoming year of 2023. There are no changes from the preliminary budget, as all reductions and adjustments were done prior to that. Some of the things that you will see here as we present this budget is The current value of a mill, we had estimated it to be $230,000. When we got the information from the county, it turns out it was $232,014, which gives us a decrease in our mill levy of 0.48. Not a lot, but at least it's not an increase. Inflation is running around 8-9%, as we all know. The budget includes the approved cost of living increase and a health insurance increase estimate of 9%. I have before you some information.
Excuse me, Mrs. Fisk.
Yes.
The 9% health insurance increase is figured into the budget. Have we actually heard from our carrier as to what that increase may be for 2023?
I would.
This is a forecasted, we're doing an estimate, so to speak, are we not?
Correct, we are. That's all we usually get. I believe if our HR director was able to be here, if she wasn't in London at the funeral of the Queen, she, I believe, got some kind of notification that it should land at that 9% or somewhere close to there. But haven't seen the confirmation, so I don't dare say that it's
Because when
actual.
I was in business, I can remember him telling me it was going to be 10%, and then it actually turned up to be 17%.
Yep. Oh,
Okay,
yes.
very good, thank you.
Yes. As you can see, looking at this particular item, it explains the general fund. Increased expenses in the general fund, total expenses are $4.25 million over 2022. This includes staff additions, all other increases that are within the general fund departments. This does not include the fire department, but it does include the police department. As you can see along the side, I have displayed for you the increases per department for the upcoming year. Okay, next I show you the increases or changes in our revenues that will be used to cover this. We have an increase in the mill value, which is helping us increase interest revenue, increase in other revenues and transfers into the general fund. And you can see in the listing here where the majority of the money comes in from to help cover the changes in the fund. Other levied funds include the library, which is a small decrease from 2022 in mills, and the fire fund has a decrease of 0.12 mils. Even though you look at their budget expenditures, for example, it's over $6 million increase in the fire department, but the value of our mill had an impact enough to help cover that, plus funds from the general fund will come over to carry the deficit that will be in the fire fund for 2023. The other changes were small in sheriff specials and airport authority. And so at this time, I just would ask you if you have specific questions. The only other item I should touch on is the enterprise funds, water, sewer, and garbage. Had a discussion with President Dardis this morning about this. And I do not have proposed changes to the rates or anything for that at this time. Our new finance director, Judy, is working very diligently on getting all the historical information and trying to get all the calculations correct in the enterprise fund so we can make sure that we are bringing you solid information. So we will have that to you, I believe, within the next month. So that is why we don't have anything in there for that right now. But at this time, if you have any questions.
Commissioners, questions for Mrs. Fisk? Okay, thank you. With that, I would ask if there's any public comment on the budget as presented. And if you come forward, I'd ask you to be as specific as possible as to the department and or which line item that we're discussing. So, to the public, anyone that have any discussion on the 2023 budget as presented?
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
My question would be...
Name, please, and address.
My name is Brent Mickelson.
Thank you, Brent.
At 1444 River Street. My question is percentage-wise, what is our budget increasing this year over last year? in dollars wise or percentage.
Have you calculated that, sir?
I have not.
Okay. Because I don't know it off the top of my head.
Are you asking for just the funds that we actually levy a tax for?
No, I'm more asking like in 2022, if our city budget was 250 million. In 2023, is it up 10%? Are we going to 275? And I understand that this year is quite freakish with our inflation. I totally understand that. But fiscally conservatively, I'm a fiscal conservative, so I want to get some basis on where we're going and where we're coming from and how this correlates with our population expansion to kind of come to grips with.
I don't have my sheet with me, but
And I'll have to do some of that myself.
I calculated each of them by department. You know, and I have that in a handwritten sheet in my office. It's substantial. But Mrs. Fish, did you have a comment? Did you have a number?
In some
Before
departments.
we go to Mrs. Fish, Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to make the comment that, when you ask that question, I agree with you, but it's very difficult to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges when our growth has been so huge as well. So it's not the same growth, it's not the same tax base it was in 2022. So that number, to me, even whatever it is going to be a little deceiving. That's the problem we have.
Yeah, and we should have some kind of correlation with.
Correct.
With,
Well,
That's fair. That's a
with the
legit.
number of new housing that's coming into town, right? So I just want to try and figure out.
Yeah, and one thing that
We have to grow conservatively a little bit to not harm the existing residents that have lived in this community a long time. And our taxes, which, as you know, as I spoke to you guys earlier in the year, have, been on the rise since 2016, quite a bit, our property valuations, which in turn our taxes up. And all that's proportional. I'm trying to quantify this in my mind so we can see and identify if there are certain problems. I understand that you're gonna have some departments that are fuel heavy, which their budget from last year is out the window. We were paying $2 diesel and now we're paying $4.50 if we're lucky.
all of our departments doubled their fuel budget.
So I'm not here to begrudge or anything. I fully understand that. My clients are feeling the pain, the sticker shock, as well as myself. I'm just trying to come to grasp with if there's a flat line that we.
Mrs. Fish, do you have a response to the gentleman?
Yes, if I look just at straight expenses, now we've done adjustments to a bunch of our revenue line items too to cover these expenses as well. But just in our tax levied funds, because I was just trying to pull up last year's to get the full consolidated, it's approximately 17.6% increase. The majority of that increase comes in police and fire. So I'm not, because we have.
For this year's, or for.
Over last year,
budget,
this year over last year.
We have 200% fuel cost increase. So
Correct.
17% is relative, right? I mean.
Yeah, and inflation and all the things, and yes.
And I get it, I heard the deal with insurance, I pay health insurance myself, I get it, but trying to figure out, and what we are doing as a city to kind of.
And a reminder to the public too, when we talk about our fire department, this has been an overall plan for about 6 years.
Sure.
That we were gonna make the transition from, volunteer fire department to a part-time fire department / hybrid where we have, full-time firemen and volunteer firemen that fill in and the like. So this has been a transition as we've continued to hire, and 2023 is when we're going to have the new facilities and equipment, which has been budgeted for, the last several years, and there's 14 new employees coming on, and that's with benefits and staffing, equipment, and all of those types of things. So this has been coming on for about 5.5 to 6 years, that 2023 is when we're going to pay the piper, so to speak, that we're going to actually make that commitment. Commissioner Olson.
Is that when you see it plateauing kind of, or flatlining?
Well, anytime that you're adding, benefits and salary, it's, that's, you got to figure the sustainability of that. You sound like you're a businessman, so you get that, that's never going to go down. So you've got that. So you got to manage all the rest of your budgets, both
But
in
we're
that
bringing
department.
these folks on with, should be tempered.
Not the dramatic increases is.
With the expansion of residents and new properties coming online, so it's, you know what I mean? So
Yes, sir.
I'm just saying, when Mrs. Fisk deals with forecasting and whatever, do we have maybe a timeline for when this should maybe, when we're gonna catch with the curve, because it should flat spot or.
You raise a great question, and we've got lots of smart people up here and in the room. Right now, we're at 130 new permits for new residential homes, 130. Of course, there's some exemptions that are involved with new home builds and stuff like that. So, all of that is contingent on our growth and what type of dollar values that has. And, the average home that they're building in West Fargo right now, again, I'm sorry, I have that data in my office. I got it yesterday. It's a substantial increase, as you pointed out, not only from a fuel standpoint, but the cost of construction and all of these types of things. So they have a higher value. And of course, that's all part of the tax base. Commissioner Olson had a comment.
Just one comment on the transition of the fire department from a volunteer to a full-time. That should be helping everybody's property taxes or insurance, their property insurance go down. Everybody in the city's gonna do that, because beforehand, your insurance was up here because we didn't have a full-time fire department. So now when we do have one, your insurance should drop. And then as far as sustainability, to keeping it level, we're gonna see another growth here in 5 to 10 years. That's gonna go to the northwest. So whether or not we can truthfully say today that everything's gonna stay, and me coming on as a city commissioner 4 years ago, I thought, well, what the heck? We got all these new houses coming in, and their property taxes should take care of all the growth. Well, it doesn't, because we add more roads, we add more sewer, we add more water, we have to maintain them, and then it takes more personnel. It takes more personnel in the city hall, it takes more personnel in fire and police, it takes everything, even though that I thought it should just cover itself, and it doesn't.
Which is good, right? I hear your explanation, but when we look at, like, say, everybody's property taxes for the last 5 years that have seen maybe a 6 to 11% increase or whatever, that's kind of a dangerous trend, I think, for people on fixed income and things like that. You know what I'm saying? And we can all say that, oh, if you're on fixed income and you're whatever, the state will give you money, but I'm sure there's income requirements and asset levels that have to be that way, and
Yeah, you make a good point, and respectfully, we're on the budget today.
And I don't want to drag this out.
Yeah, to Commissioner Olson's point, when we went from a part-time fire department to a semi-full-time fire department, the premium estimate that was given to our fire chief, Chief Fuller's in the back there, that at that time, insurance rates in West Fargo were estimated to go down $11 million. So, and of course, right now, we continue to be on the edge on response times, we're still good.
Yeah.
But there are different levels that when the fire department achieves that, keeping in mind, if you live on the north side, which you do, and you have a fire at your house, just keep in mind, you know, that the fire equipment is coming from West Fargo, you know, and so when we have that new station over here on 9th Street, that will again bring those times down. Well, all the fire insurance carriers and brokers, they watch that. And once we start getting those new levels, there'll be an advantage again to the, you know, to the public and to the citizens of West Fargo that their rates will go down.
And I understand that.
Yeah. Commissioners, any questions of this gentleman? Any other points that you'd like to make, sir?
No.
Commission President?
Please.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to try and answer your question, and I have to double check the numbers, actually with our finance director. This includes transfers in and out, which can kind of skew things, but our expenditures over last year for everything, that includes debt service, all the funds, was 8%.
8%.
8%.
You know, inflation's running at 9%, and, you know, it's interesting that Mrs. Fisk brings up debt service. I checked those numbers today on our budget of what our debt service obligation for 2023 is $27 million. You know, so that's a lot of money that the city has to, collecting from taxes and special assessments and all of this type of thing. That's a lot of money, right? You know, that we have to come up with, that we know for sure that we have for just debt service.
Yeah, and I appreciate you making hard decisions, but at some point we have to, you know, maybe cap some departments' growth or whatever. I mean, just to, at some point, just to, you know, rein ourselves in or whatever. And I want to grow as well as anybody. I'm a contractor. I mean, I wire houses, I get it.
Yeah.
And I wire buildings, but I understand that what things cost right now are ridiculous, right? And I understand the engineers deal with the lead time. I'm feeling his pain myself, and so are some of my clients. And just was trying to get a grasp of what you guys see and your feelings, and give you my opinion so you feel what I'm feeling, right?
We thank you for participating and respect it. Thank you, sir. Anyone else that would like to speak, please come forward.
My name is Bill West. I live at 1430 Cheyenne Street. And I was just going to go over a few things that my neighbor Brent said. I have a question, might simplify kind of what's what, because they say you're never too old to learn, and I'm old, and I need to learn some more. When you attack this budget situation, do you develop the budget first and then figure out where you're going to get the money, or do you look at the money available with a modest increase for the next year and then fit the budget into that?
Well,
That's my question.
That is a good question.
I'm not going to speak for the other commissioners. I know
That's
what
a
my
pretty
process
simple
is.
question.
Mrs. Fisk, we'll let you start with what you do as our city administrator.
Okay, just so that people understand how.
Please speak loudly. I have old ears.
Okay, yeah, okay. What we do as a process is we start with department heads and ask them to take a look at their staffing and their staffing needs, and then we send out their prior year budget and ask them to take a look at where they're at currently during the year compared to what they budgeted for, and what it is that they need to accomplish in the following year, and what they'll need to do that. So then they'll bring their budget in with that number. We'll put in all the salaries and things, and then we sit down, and if there's an increase, we sit down and we talk about it and why it is, what it's for, what are they trying to accomplish, and we start determining what can be taken out, what doesn't have to be this coming year, what can wait a year, what can't wait a year, all the different things. And so we have multiple meetings with them and then with commissioners and the department heads. And then we sit back as staff while we're doing this and we compile, what does this mean once we get all these numbers together, because we're watching each department as we do it to kind of make sure that something isn't crazy. But we look at it and say, what does this mean to the taxpayer? What does this mean to the average resident of the city of West Fargo. And we start looking, well, while we're doing that, looking at expenditures, we look at our revenues. Where else can we find revenues to help fund some of the things that the citizens expect us to provide for them? And so we'll look at all different kinds of revenue sources and try to come up with ways to keep taxes or the tax levy from going crazy. So that's kind of the initial process. Then it goes to full commission and we talk it through with them and they give us their recommendations and they're never usually too gentle. We work very hard, and I can honestly say I'm proud of our department heads because they don't put fluff in there. I see where they've cut. Our police chief turns in a book where you can see all the cuts that they do, and because they understand the importance of the taxpayer, but also it's important what they do. So it isn't like free reign, give me whatever you want and we'll fill your basket with candy. That's not at all how it works.
Has it ever gone this way where the commission or the powers that be that are forming the budget would say, okay, we know there's going to be, and inflation's higher now, we know that. This is what you got last year, and you had such and such an increase the year before, and then last year you got this. Next year, we're shooting for maximum 5%, every department, and then you tell them, you fit your budget in there and see how that works. And start there and then see how that goes. Here's, because like Brent said, nobody's gonna feel sorry for me, but I'm retired and living on a fixed income. But my taxes have gone up on my house 11% or more every year, and last year now, between 22 and 23, they bumped it almost 22%. Now, if I gotta pay that kind of an increase every year on my taxes to support a budget that's too big, that means that there is a budget problem, not an income problem, if that's happening all over West Fargo. Now, maybe I'm an isolated case, but somewhere along the line, that's kind of gotta stop.
I can address that question. I truly understand exactly what you're saying and what you're getting at. The thing we have here is if you were to look at our budget, what calculates your property tax from the city and from all the other entities, we take your value of your property.
Can't talk about that tonight.
I know.
I read it in the letter.
I know, but
I've been reprimanded for that before.
but I just want to
Paying attention, Bill.
I just want to let you know that what the city did here is we had budget increases because of our expansion needs for fire and police and everything that were out of this world. And we were able to actually drop a $500,000. So what that means is we didn't increase the amount of money the amount of mills we were gonna ask you for. And that's because the commission made it very clear that we're gonna have to be very careful and it's gonna have to be something that is very strongly needed before they'll go to the taxpayers and ask for more mills to be put on. Now, yes, our value of our mill went up, which is fantastic, but with that being said, that doesn't happen every year. And the city has routinely either held their mills, gone down, or last year we had to go up because we took on the rural fire department as a department of the city, and we have to provide fire protection, we have to provide police protection, and all that comes at a cost.
Seems like when that doesn't really work to 100%, then they go for the increased property values, which we're not allowed to talk about, and then the taxes go up. So now I'm back to Mr. Mickelson. When's this thing gonna level out? I don't want my taxes to go up 25% every year.
Unfortunately for us, you'd have to talk to the legislature because they've determined how we have to value properties. Not that we're talking about that tonight. And we have to go by the market, and the market has been going up and up and up. That part's out of our control. Our assessors have no option but to go with the laws of the state. And I know that isn't what you want to hear, and I'm really sorry, but it's the truth.
No, you don't control that, but you can control your own budget, and I appreciate the fact that you're working hard on that, but somebody's not working hard enough on something, somewhere. That's all I have to say.
Commissioners?
Thank you.
I just gotta make the comment, Bill, that, you know, I understand it, and you're right, and Tina explained it great, but, you know, when concrete goes up 10%, when grocery, whatever, you know, all the items that we have to buy, just as you, not grocery, but concrete, asphalt, lumber, all that goes up. You know, we have to make up for that as well, just like you would with everything else too. So it's bound to go up somewhat. We're not gonna be able to keep it the same.
I get that. I was in business too.
I know you were very much, so.
So, but, you know, somewhere along the line, this thing's gotta level out somewhere.
And because you were a businessman, Bill, you understand that, you know, you couldn't predict how much revenue you were gonna have in any given 1 year. And when it comes to federal funding, state funding, those types of things, what we're using are estimates as well, okay? And, you know, we have a pretty good handle on what we're going to special assess, again, based on the North Dakota legislature's century code. We have to be from 95 to 100% of true value when it comes to residential. Commercial, you can be a little bit less because there's large tracts of land that are involved in. So it's a different percentage than it is for residential. So, you know, our assessors are following the letter of the law because there's been cities, lots of cities that have gotten in trouble over it because they weren't doing that. You know, they weren't following the North Dakota legislature's intent. And, you know, and then, so then what the legislature wants to do is they'll want to wander in and say, okay, you can't have more than a 3 mil increase on your special assessments because good folks like you or other residents are saying my taxes are going up, my special assessments are going up, I can't handle it, you know. So the budget process as outlined by Mrs. Fisk, I meet with her after she meets with each department head. I have the administrative. You know, Mr. Olson has public works, so he's meeting preliminarily before and during when public works is going to meet with Mrs. Fisk. He's involved in that. Mark Simmons has the police and fire. So each of us as commissioners are invited in to participate. Whether the commissioners choose to, that's another thing. But they have that preliminary. As Mrs. Fisk called out one specific budget, she called out the police department budget. I have that in my office, and I'd welcome to share it with you, to look at it. Because the initial budget that came forth from the command staff to Chief Otterness, and then what Chief Otterness actually brought forward, I would wish that all department heads did the budgets like the police department does. It was redlined. What the chief removed from what his command staff had requested. So yeah, it's a team effort to begin with, but it all comes down to the department heads, and then the department heads are responsible to Mrs. Fisk. Mrs. Fisk and I, again, we're reviewing this, and then we're all responsible to the commission. But the revenues are forecasted as well as to what we're going to collect. So this is kind of a deal. You know, I had a very brief meeting today with our finance director and Mrs. Fisk. You know, we have things that are coming forward with us when it comes to water and sewer. Between the two of them, it's $15 million that we're going to have to go out and bond for that. So that's going to be $15 million that we have to, again, add to what the potential debt services we're going to have for 2023. Because we have to protect our citizens. They got to provide them water, and we certainly don't want sewers backing up. That's why we're doing all this rehabilitation work. We're past the timeline, and it's aging out.
I understand.
We can't afford that. So when we're dealing with the 2023 budget, we're really working in 2025, 2026 on some of this stuff that we have to keep ahead of it. You know, south of the interstate is now over 20 years old. It's been 21 years since the city of West Fargo moved south of the interstate. That infrastructure is going to start needing rehabilitation soon, and we've got more than sometimes we have money for just on the north side of interstate. So we respect what you're saying, what both of you folks have brought forward this evening. The budget is there's a lot of eyes that go over it before it comes to this meeting.
Okay, well, this is another thing too, you'll probably laugh, but I'm not a techie. I have a heck of a time just getting information when I call City Hall. When, is there, you know, like, okay, here's my question. Has there been a public hearing, you know, where people can come in and kind of vent like we're doing? Has there been that yet, or we're gonna be notified?
On June 28th,
Nobody knew when I called City Hall.
on June 28th, in this meeting room, we had a meeting, and every department head, it wasn't a public hearing for public comment, but every department presented to this commission, June 28th, 5 p.m. I looked it up today. Again, I didn't bring it with me. It's on my desk in my office, where each department head presented to this commission what their budget was.
See, we came to a couple meetings in August, and both times it was like, oh, we can't talk about that tonight.
But you wanted
You know,
to talk, you wanted to talk taxes or special assessments, and we were dealing with the.
Yeah, that's my point. We don't want to show up at the wrong meeting any more than you want to see our ugly faces.
Well,
but if there's something, you know, that we can benefit from, it'd be kind of fun to be there.
I value very much what our communications department does and has on our website, and I think they do an admirable job. But if you don't have it, I'll give you my phone number. You can call me and ask me the question, and we'll make damn sure that we get it to you.
Okay,
How's
good.
that?
Does that ring at the lake?
Yes, sir.
Fair enough.
I'm not giving you my city phone. I carry two of them, so you can't miss me. All right?
Not giving you mine either.
Thank you, Mr. West. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this evening's budget? Is there anyone else? Again, this is a information only. Is that correct, Mrs. Fisk? The final review of this will be on October 3rd meeting. Is that right?
For those of you commissioners that weren't aware, we had an error take place, and this is supposed to be our public hearing and approval of the final budget, but we're also required to notice that in the Fargo Forum, and it did not get put in the forum. So what I'm going to ask tonight is for you to continue this meeting to allow us to put the notice in the paper, and then we'll meet on at your first meeting in October and ask for your approval.
Yeah, we discovered that this afternoon, and that's when we made the decision that we would have put some public comment tonight, but it will also be advertised for the first meeting in October, which I'm confident is October 3rd. Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. Tina, I just have one quick question for you, and it's not, the page is in here, so it's under non-departmental. It's item number 658, and what it is, it's family health, $20,000. Who does that go to?
That goes to Family Health Care. We have a healthcare facility through Family Health in West Fargo, and so we give money to them every
So
year.
is that Cass County Family Health?
I believe that is connected to Cass Public
So
Health.
my question, because I heard through the grapevine that we got booted off that committee.
No, we didn't. We took care of that.
Someone is on the committee?
I am still a member of the.
Okay, very well. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. There was discussion about removing non-medical
personnel or
people that had medical backgrounds. I just informed them that the city of West Fargo was going to be on that committee.
Anytime we're funding anything
And
there,
we
should be there.
are on that committee, and I am the representative.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So do we need to table this to get it on the next one, or how do we procedurally do this?
I'll follow you procedurally, whatever you want.
I don't know.
I think that
John?
if we call it forward as a informational information this evening, we'll have a public hearing on October 3rd, and if I have a consensus for the commission.
You do?
We do?
Do they need to make a motion?
Is that acceptable, Mr.?
to that? No? Okay.
No, you're just continuing it until you have the public hearing.
So it will be continued to October 3rd, next West Fargo City Commission meeting. And we do have a consensus of a 5 for that, to proceed that way.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Item number 7, You have an office space recommendation to negotiate a lease. Mrs. Fisk.
Okay, let me open this back up again and see what I do to it. Oh, wait, that's not, I got it. I think I got it. I think I do. If I screwed up, you can just jump up and help me. Okay. Okay. You all had this memo in your packet, and it's discussing the potential to lease office space. As you all know, you started an exploratory committee. The police department and the city hall site are both severely out of space. With the upcoming year, we will not have enough room to put anybody on the city hall side. I know the police department's struggling as well, but we've determined that we're going to have to move a department off-site until we can solve our issue. The assessing department will have 6 employees, and we know that depending on what the exploratory committee comes up with, even as we move forward, we'll need to move more people off-site. The assessing department was chosen because though we all collaborate together all the time, they are out going to all different parts of the city all of the time. And so they're kind of in and out, running around anyway. So we thought by moving them off-site temporarily, but would work. We have concerns about keeping everybody in-house so that we can all collaborate and work together, but I feel that this is our best solution at this time. So with that in mind, Nick Lee, our city assessor, started looking around for properties. I should back up. We had first brought to you that we would look at remodeling the courtroom, the old courtroom, so that we could fit more people in there and then start moving everybody around again. The price tag to actually make that a usable space was between $300,000 and $500,000. So we could about guarantee it'd be more than that. So we did not feel that was viable. So at the end of the day, that's when Mr. Lee started looking around at properties that had a reasonable price. He looked at quite a few and came up with this property that you have before you at 1405 Prairie Parkway. This is, if you can tell by the location, it's the upper floor. It's in that same strip mall as Bar 9. The appeal of this property is that they have said that they will provide parking for our fleet vehicles that will have security cameras and lighting, and plus they have enough parking out in front for staff vehicles, personal vehicles, and then people that would come to see them. There's an elevator to help people get to the second floor, so that will not be an issue for those that have mobility issues. The cost of the lease of this space is economical compared to what's going on around in the market. And so our request tonight is for you to allow us, make a motion to allow us to move forward to negotiate a lease on that property.
Okay. Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Tina. For how many years?
Right now, I believe that they were looking at a 3 to 5 year.
3 to 5 year
in hopes
lease?
that we would have something else ready for them in that time period.
I mean, it's not like a 10-year lease or nothing, and we want to go short-term, obviously, right? So.
Correct.
Good question, Commissioner. Commissioner Olson and Commissioner Anderson.
If we do approve this, then what departments will move into the assessor's, space right now in City Hall?
I haven't redone the entire floor plan yet, but we have engineering staff that will need that space. We have communication staff. We have, there's plenty of staff. Because right now, all we have left is one office, and that one is full of all of our stuff because we only have one little storage room. So it will be used up.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, I have a couple questions here. So do we have any idea of how much space we'd be looking at renting?
Yeah, the square footage is very much of an interest to me.
I can't remember exactly how much it was. Let me see here. I don't know why I'm thinking that it was. See, that's why Dustin was supposed to be here. Well, the space would fit up to 12 people, and I'm thinking that it was like a couple thousand square feet, and that they said that there's room to expand if we need to move more people over there. The nice part about this space is it's already fit up for office, so we don't have to do a lot of fit up.
So do you recall what the monthly term is? I mean, obviously it's based on square footage and, you know, the $12 and...
$12.75 a square foot, and that is per month. I know you asked that.
That's very affordable space
Commissioner
in this day and
Anderson.
age.
And a $6.06 CAM. The CAM covers taxes, insurance, ground maintenance, and common area cleaning, maintenance, and repair.
$18.81 with CAMs is very reasonable. But I really need to know, would like to know the square footage and also on the contract, is there an inflation factor that they'll have built into that? So with all due respect, I'd really like to see the lease agreement as well, Mrs. Fisk. And maybe, I know we're not quite ready to sign a lease if in fact we don't know some of this information. Commissioner Anderson, do you have any follow-up?
I just have one additional. Has there been any looking at any alternative things such as changing kind of the workspaces around, reconfiguring? If the assessing department is in and out so much, is it possible to have maybe smaller desks where you can fit more people? Or is it possible to do some kind of hybrid work situation where some folks are working remotely a couple of days a week or something and have different hotel desks or whatever? That's something that we have at where I work. We're running out of space. We have people working remotely, also hybrid. So it's an option that I'd like to see. I know we've talked about it in the past, but that's, I think, something that could perhaps be more economical.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. The concern with hybrid is that first of all, when you're a taxpayer, you come into City Hall, you expect to have the person there that you want to talk to. You don't want to be told, oh, they're working from home today. And there's some departments that we just can't have do that. Plus, we learned during COVID that as we all tried to work from home, it really didn't work well for the team atmosphere that we use. We all collaborate together and we all work with each other, and it's nice to be able to pull us all together into a meeting. And yes, we did a lot of Zoom meetings, but the face-to-face meetings are important. But I guess in my world, it's very important that when the public comes to City Hall, they get a face to see, and that someone is there to sit down or talk to them, and when they call, someone answers the phone. So, and like I said, there are departments that, you know, can be, you know, like assessing can be out, but yet we're still gonna have a void there because even though they're out and about, they're still here and we're always asking them questions. You run into them in the hall and you quick get information. And I understand the hybrid part of it. I have a concern that the public wouldn't be very happy.
Okay. How would you then anticipate it working with being at a satellite location and having this collaboration? Then I feel like that's almost counterintuitive as well to have that, you know, if that's one of the reasons. And, you know, I get it all, but it's just seems it's kind of counterintuitive to have a satellite location for a department, but we want to have all the face-to-face and everything.
Thank you, Commissioner. Very good point. Like I said, we're not really jumping up and down excited that we have to move, you know, staff off site, but what will happen is we'll make a point to go over there to see them, and our head of assessing, Nick Lee, will make a point to be over at City Hall so that we can all still kind of touch base. It's not our favorite answer, but it's the answer we have to have. As far as making offices smaller, we've tried that. We've put up partitions in offices, and we do that. We have 2 assessors in one office, 2 communications in another office. We've looked at chopping up other offices. The issues we run into, the more we continue to do this, is Our heating and air conditioning system is not designed, it's designed for the building to be wide open space. And so the more we clutter people in, we've got more air conditioner, or more fans, more heaters, more dehumidifiers running in that building than anybody will want to know about, especially the fire department. It's just unfortunate, but it is what it is. But
Gina, Chief Fuller's in the room.
I know he is, that's why I said that. But on that same note, I wanted to clarify too that I wasn't obviously clear. We don't have a lease, we don't have an agreement, we have nothing. We just wanted to be able to have permission to talk to them. And so what we can do is talk to them, and anything that's talked about would come back to you guys with drawings of size, square foot, an agreement, and it would be upon your approval. We're not asking to approve anything other than to talk with this company and look into seeing if we can get a lease together that we can bring back to you.
Thank you. Commissioner George had a point.
Yeah, just a quick question. I didn't see it on the memo, and I was just wondering, since this is obviously something you're going to want in 2023, but I don't think it's in the budget, just what your plan is for paying for it, or where the money would come from.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner George. I know Commissioner Anderson asked me that today too, and I didn't get a chance to get back to him either. This would be something that would have to be an amendment when approved to the budget. And then at that time, we would bring you ideas of where to take the funds from, whether you take it from reserves, whether you take it from another spot. I don't like touching capital improvement sales tax because I want to keep that to keep trying to buy down the cost of specials, but for other projects. But I would come back with some options once we know the number. We'll work with our finance director, Judy, and get back to you, but.
Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina, do you want a motion or just a recommendation here, or should we do an official motion? So it's on record?
Motion? Yeah, a motion would be
I'd
good
make a
because that
motion
way we have
to move
direction.
forward and
Allow staff to
allow
negotiate.
staff to negotiate and bring it back to us.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson, second. Been moved and seconded to approve staff to move forward to negotiate a lease, a potential lease. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carried. 4-1 vote. Item number 8 is a request to explore options in regards to childcare. Commissioner Mandy George.
So this is something that has become a bit of a crisis in our community, I feel, as far as lack of availability to childcare as well as skyrocketing costs. I would like to start working with staff, but I brought in a guest today. I'd like to welcome Dr. Donita Gallo to the podium. She is an early childhood faculty member at MSUM, and I invited her to speak to this issue before we asked for the request. So thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Gallis. Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for the invitation, Commissioner George. Childcare is an issue across the United States and one we certainly are seeing around here. It was exciting to sit in this meeting and hear, I know the potential or the growth I've seen in the 2 years that I've lived here. However, 130 new permits for building means potentially 130 new families, and that is exciting. This is definitely a growing community. From the 2020 information that was available through Child Care Aware, Cass County has about 25,005 children under the age of 12, which birth to to age 12 is what is considered that child care range. That's what child care is licensed for. At that time, we were meeting about 56% of the potential need for child care. For children birth to age 5, 79.2% of families have all parents working in the workforce. And those kids 6 to 13, that's school age, which is a real crunch. And for anyone who is trying to pick up kids after school, you know that's a time that of great need. 82.1% of families, all parents are working and needing that child care. We're particularly looking at that deficit in non-traditional hours, so staying open past 6 p.m. having availability on weekends for some of those workers. I think that looking at supporting childcare in a variety of ways in this community could really open up an opportunity for West Fargo to be able to say to Cass County, this is a great place to raise your children. We have the childcare, which feeds into the structure of the K-12 system. So as you talk about neighborhood schools, we also have kids who are growing up in their area with the children that they would be spending that time with, and creating those bonds within that community, and for families to be able to move here and know that the services are available that they need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gallows. Any questions or?
So what I would like to request is to allow city staff to work with commissioners, work with Dr. Gallo, any other members of the community, to try and come up with solutions for things that we can do to help with the childcare in our community. And so that would just be my request, is to vote to allow staff time to work towards childcare.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Commissioner Simmons?
I agree with Mandy on this one. Job retention is huge. We all know that in our community, and they need help. And I know the governor's starting a program. I have no idea what it is. I tried to read it, but got nowhere. But he's doing something. I think as a community, as a city, it's our obligation to jump out and get in front of this. I think it would be huge for us to do this.
And I
I'm
think
all
it's
for
certainly a way to bring more individuals into this community, because it is a great place to have a family.
If there's something you guys, our community, can do to enhance this, boy, more power to us. And I think it makes us look good all over the state, trying to get something done here. So,
you're correct. And last week, Governor Burgum and his staff, the Commerce Department, along with Human Services, had a joint meeting with a lot of legislators from the local community, Southeast. Gosh, I forget the acronym of but Senator Kyle Davidson is the head of that. A wonderful human being and a good legislator. And they had some great dialogue as to what's going to happen, and trying to help along businesses and the potential of tax credits to those people that provide care. But also the Commerce Department has a number of programs that go directly to those that are providing care for the children, the centers and things like that, and fully expect that there's going to be additional dollars that will be allocated by the state legislature. The Department of Human Services, Chris and I had about 8 phone calls last week because we were dealing with a child care center here in the city of West Fargo, and he is absolutely committed to this. Chris Jones is his name. He's the head of Human Services for the state of North Dakota. We also have an ace in our Senator Lee. Senator Judy Lee heads up the Senate Social Services and for the state of North Dakota. And she has been a champion, a longtime champion, working side by side with Senator Kathy Hogan, a Fargo senator, who the two ladies work amazingly well together, different parties, but they work amazingly well because they have the same passion for human services and child care and all of those types of things. So, to Commissioner George, we have a lot of people that are engaged in this right now, and you're correct in trying to get our staff to be fully, and again, I'd like to, Mrs. Fisk, at some, maybe on our, at least at our October 3rd meeting, maybe share back with the commission as to what department is engaged in reaching out to the senator or having
Can we
meetings.
push it back to the next one? We'll miss the 3rd for work, so if we could do
My
that.
apologies, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner George told me that she's unavailable October 3rd, so the second meeting in October, that way we certainly want Commissioner George present to, but if available, whoever that staff member is, please reach out to Senator Judy Lee, District 13 from West Fargo. She's been a real champion of this for a long time, and she's working hard to get the legislature, the governor, the Commerce Department, and Human Services to engage in this. So we have a champion right here in our own hometown. So, but by can somebody help me with that second meeting on October?
17th.
Must be 17th. And Commissioner, you'll be available?
And I think certainly collaborating with the
Yep.
individuals that are championing it already is a
Terrific.
great idea, and especially childcare, when you're looking at the workforce especially, should be a bipartisan issue of just getting people into.
Well,
the
you're
workforce.
here at the invitation of Commissioner George, and the staff will be reporting directly to her. This is
Excellent.
one of the things that she's passionate about, and you know, the whole thing is that, you know, the Chamber of Commerce and all kinds of different parties are working hard on workforce. And one of the things that's critical is that if we can have the spouse that's home taking care of children come back into the workforce, because childcare has gotten so expensive, it's a potential relief also for workforce, that the mother or father that's home taking care of the children can come back into the workforce if daycare becomes affordable again for some families. So, very worthy cause, and so, again, we're glad that you could join us this evening. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you for the invitation.
Thank you, Doctor.
So I guess I would like to make a motion to allow staff time to work towards solutions or ideas towards childcare.
May we add at the direction of City Administrator Fisk?
That would be fine. Yep.
Because it's kind of a, you know, the emphasis on this, I don't know which department that would, you know, I have an idea, but.
I've also spoke with Casey Sanders a little bit
Okay.
on this issue as
Yep,
well.
very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to allow staff to work on the options with regard to childcare and providing childcare to our community. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Commissioner George. Next is the City Administrator's report. Mrs. Fisk.
Thank you, Commission President and Commissioners. I really only have one item for you, and that is to notify you that we'll be having a special assessment meeting of the commission. I'm going to say this, I said it all wrong because my brain went somewhere else, sorry. October 6th to hear District 2250. And so that will be set, it'll be posted and sent out. And if you have additional questions, our attorney, Mr. Shockley, can probably help you and actually make a clear sentence.
Thank you. Any
So
questions?
that's the Special Assessment Committee is having the meeting on October 6th,
The
not
commission,
us.
nope, it's you guys.
Oh.
It's the meeting of the city commission to hear special assessments on District 2250, sorry.
Okay.
And other than that, I don't have anything right now,
Anything?
other than I will be gone Thursday and Friday of this week for the North Dakota League of Cities in Grand Forks.
Questions for Mrs. Fisk? Anyone? Thank you. Correspondence, Mrs. Fisk, anything? All right, thank you. Commissioners, is there anybody that has a non-agenda item that they'd like to bring forward? Commissioner Olson?
Yes, I just want to put a shout out to our street department. A couple meetings ago, we authorized the purchase of a new paving machine. So if you get a chance and you're out and about, go drive up 9th Street Northwest by Bush Ag. They did that. And then also on 7th Avenue, going past Hazers, going east into Fargo, our crews did that. They look great. So you can see what we did with that purchase.
Good.
Great news. Commissioners, anybody else have a non-agenda item? I have a couple that I'd like to bring up. First of all, I met today with a group of people from Fargo that are working with West Fargo High School and the Cheyenne Mustangs in creating key clubs there, and they want to start a Kiwanis Club in the city of West Fargo. This has been under discussion for over 3 years. I got a call about 3 years ago from a Kiwanian that I know quite well in Fargo that wanted to do this because of our growth of our city. And of course, one of the things that Kiwanis really goes for is for the key clubs that are in the respective high schools. And they have some great programming for the youth. It's this Thursday, September 22nd, 6 p.m. at West Fargo High School, and there'll be a presentation there, and they'll be meeting with students to get the key clubs organized within that particular school. And I think there's another one, future one, that they're going to do at Cheyenne as well. So there's that. The other thing is this past weekend, our community experienced another fall festival and celebration in Westfest. And I couldn't be prouder of our community and the turnout that we had. It was amazing. The streets were full. I kept saying to myself out loud, no wonder we build a new school about every 30 minutes in West Fargo, because the streets were lined with, obviously there was guests that were in our community as well, but the young people, one of the things I kept noting was those that are preschool, that are younger than what I would estimate them to be in school, and the numbers are fabulous. But it was a wonderful family event, well attended. We had just under, I believe, there 89 floats. Rachel, is that what you told me, or 90 floats? Somebody from West Fargo Events or Communications.
94.
94. Thank you. 94 floats in our community. I've had a lot of public comments that people that I run into over the weekend, and they weren't all from our community, but they were out here for it, and they commended it. So to West Fargo Events, I don't think that Mike Amundsen's going to be the same with the hug that I gave him after everything was going down. But
I heard you gave him a hug, Mayor, so he's pretty happy about that.
I was just overwhelmed at the time of the community support that we had, and Mike's body language told me he wasn't ready for a Dardis hug, but I did it anyway. So I want to commend West Fargo Events, Communications, Rachel, Melissa, Addie, the role that you folks play. Casey, I'm sure that in economic development you were probably out there holding some hands with some of our business community on Cheyenne and the like. So on behalf of this commissioner, I want to say thank you to all of you. Again, we're back to pre-pandemic numbers and the response, and it was a great couple of days in West Fargo. And that's the other thing. It's not just Saturday anymore, With all of the capable people we have, it's now become, a multiple day event. And I think we should be very grateful for all of those people that work so hard. Public Works, I drove up Cheyenne Street Sunday afternoon, and I'm not kidding. I saw one piece of candy on Cheyenne Street, and it was down in front of our low-income housing new retrofits that we've done there. There was not a piece of garbage or anything in our streets. To our police department, to our Explorer group, when I saw the size of the farm equipment that was there, I was very nervous, all these young children wanting candy. But our police explorers walked beside that big farm equipment the entire route to protect the safety of the public. So there's just so many people. The fire department, they had paramedics on bikes, and they were engaged and involved. The police department, everybody, everybody that had anything to do with the planning of the route. I thought it was interesting that we had a new route, and I should have paid closer attention, because I'd have tried to get these commissioners to slow down on how they were dispersing their candy, because we certainly ran out. But I've made a vow that won't happen next year if this commissioner has to buy candy himself. So again, to the community of the city of West Fargo, to all of you that were involved in it, a special thank you to the West Fargo events staff, because they play a key role. Congratulations on a great community fall celebration. Couldn't be prouder. That's all I have. Anything else? Commissioners, non-agenda? Anybody from our department heads have anything non-agenda that you'd like to bring forward this evening? If not, Commissioner Simmons,
Move to adjourn.
Commissioner Olson,
Second.
you stand adjourned. Thank you.
All game's on.
It's just the